Hi, I'm Chuck, and I'd like to share a view on religion and especially science, which I view as a religion, with you. I believe science is the fourth Abrahamic religion, and that religion at its fundamental core is nothing more but codified culture and the way in which we deal with one another. And I'll get to the bit where I believe science forms part of it. But before I do that, I'd like you to think back on what it was like thousands of years ago, before we have the religions that we have today and these big structures that we have, when you would just be living in a village. How do you make sense of a world that constantly changes and that is so full of chaos? It's this one thing that we have in our very large bag of tricks called anthropomorphization, which I'm butchering for the how manyth time now. It allows us to relate to objects and to things and to people and animals and larger things that is beyond our scope of reasoning by attributing human-like abilities to it. Because that's the only way that we understand. The other is if we see ourselves in it. So you would have the river god, where if the rainy season comes, it gets plump. Just as we tended to do if we got more food. And the dry season, it goes down, as we often did if we didn't store enough food. That process of relating to the unknown is, I believe, what the fundamental core of religion is, and how we learned how to convey that to one another. So we ended up with the mountain god, the river god, the god of fertility, and it was this entire pantheon of of figures which had some relationship towards one another, but it became quite confusing until Abraham came along. And this is something that's always fascinated me. It's like, what was it with Abraham? Because I grew up in the desert, right? And I'm no Abraham. So just living in the desert doesn't cut it. But what happened with Abraham is all those unknown gods became one. It is the unknown that became knowable. And that's, I believe, why it was so fervently advocated for and arguably killed for quite a lot. Passing no moral judgment on the subject. But without that unknown being knowable, we can't have science. It believes that there is an unknown out there that we can relate to. That's why we explore. That's why we travel to the depths of the ocean and the reaches of space, because that unknown calls us. It's what makes us human. And the four Abrahamic religions is four perspectives on that relationship towards the unknown. Judaism being that relationship towards the unknown from the perspective of family. Islam being that relationship towards the unknown from the perspective of society. Christianity being that relationship towards the unknown with respect to authority. And science being that perspective with the relationship to the unknown from the vantage point of truth. We've seen over the last couple of years how when we ask science to make moral judgments, that things go, let's just say, not entirely to plan. Because that perspective is not contained within the realm of truth, because truth is relative to your vantage point. The global truth, capital T, let's define it as the edge of where we've reached, would be the Voyager spacecraft. Within that sphere, there are multiple truths, small t's, as I would put it. My truth and your truth might be completely different. But contained within the larger truth, both of those truths can be accommodated. And once we realize that the others is not a threat, your truth is not a threat to mine, and if I'm not comfortable with your truth, I have no grounding on any sense in enforcing my truth on yours, because I failed to do the work. Because science is a belief. It's a belief in the scientific method. The scientific method in and of itself is a philosophy. It's not science. It is demonstrably effective. I've flown to where I am now and across the world. But there are other religions, not mentioning also which are perspectives, I believe, from the inside out, how to view yourself in relationship to those around you, which is especially well encapsulated in Buddhism. We are fighting wars and ideologies that are arguments about where we stand and not about what the lay of the land and the best for all of us are. God exists and God is the unknown. And it's that unknown that calls us. I find the narrative in Christianity of love and of tolerance, which is not exclusive to Christianity, to be the one that I'm most drawn to and the one that has made my life one that I'm glad to have lived and appreciate every day living. And I have a lot to learn, but so does all of us. Fighting over what is right leads us further away from the truth and further away of that which we don't know. I believe that's a detriment to us all. So I'd implore you to start feeling comfortable with the unknown. Because feeling comfortable with the unknown, you know where it exists. And you know what? That's exactly the place where you're supposed to be looking for your next answers. Love you.